Hi, Heather.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Are you ready to do another awesome session today?
I hope so.
Well,
As ready
welcome,
as I'm going to be.
everyone. Yes, welcome, everyone. Welcome back to the show. I would like to introduce today Heather Rapetti and Paul Grill from Infosol, one of our partners, been a long time 360 Suite partner. Last year, Heather also did a session with us on our last virtual event, which was an amazing hit. Hi, Paul. And so we decided to bring it back for some more. People seem to love your sessions, Heather. You do great teaching with what you're about to show today. And from my understanding, it is fun formatting with Webi.
Yes. Thank you. I really appreciate that. That's very nice. Thank you.
Yes, yeah. And hi, Paul. Maybe you want to do a quick introduction for you and Heather. Tell us a bit about Infosol and what's going on with you guys before we get started.
Sure. Yeah, sure. My name is Paul Grill. I'm the CEO of Infosol. We're a business intelligence solutions company who specialize in business objects, everything business objects. We've been a partner of Business Objects and SAP for 25 years. And I'll hand over to you, Heather, to introduce yourself.
Yes.
Great. Yeah. So I'm Heather Rapetti. I work with Paul at Infosol, and I have been working with business objects for quite some time. All I will say is since before 4.1 existed. I don't want to date myself too much. And, as we jump in, I was going to talk a little bit more about, my love for business objects and web intelligence and, just I guess that's kind of the short intro. We'll add some more later. How's that? We'll save some for the presentation.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, and as in with the last sessions, if you've got questions, post them. Paul's going to help field some of those questions for Heather as she goes along with the session. But put them in the comments section. Anything that you may have in regards to what she's about to showcase today. And I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Lisa Neal with 360 Suite, account executive out here, managing kind of the West Coast, and I work closely with Paul as well. So I'll turn it over to Heather now.
All right. I'm going to.
I will mute.
There we go. Okay, so you should now be looking at my presentation. Do you see the cover screen? All right, I'm going to assume we do.
Yes.
Yeah, we see it. We see it.
Perfect. Thank you. That's it. That's the last question I have for a little while. So like we said, I'm Heather Rapetti, and one of the things I wanted to kind of talk about before I jump into everything is, some of my favorite things about business objects. So my absolute favorite thing is the versatility. It has a lot of really cool canned elements like tables and charts, which are really cool. And you can make a lot of really nice dashboards with these elements. But one of the things that I really, really love to do is find new ways to make all of these elements even more interesting. And that's what we're going to do today. So I'm going to kick it off with kind of a hypothetical question, which is what's your well, not hypothetical, I guess, but a question which is what's your favorite color? So if we were in a room together today and I handed out a box of crayons and I said, take one, which one would you choose? So with that information in mind, let's say I took all of your answers and I put them all into a data set, and then I made a Webi chart out of them. And this is just a simple column chart, and you can see all the different colors. Obviously, orange is my favorite, so it's winning. And it's pretty visual, right? You get an idea, but it's not exactly the best visualization. So maybe we add some color to the chart, right? So now it's a little bit more dynamic, and you can kind of see each color, see which ones are jumping out, which ones are ahead, which ones are behind. And this is really cool too. But as I looked at this, I started thinking, this is neat, but what's another way I can really show this? And it kind of clicked for me, and I came back to the crayons, which is why I opened with that. And I said, what if I took these colors and I made it into a box of crayons? So now, you can see each crayon, each color represents the number of responses, and it's kind of sticking out of the crayon box. Wouldn't this look a lot cooler in my dashboard? So just to let everybody in on a little secret ahead of time, and this is kind of like spoiler, but that's okay. what you're looking at with the crayon box isn't actually a column chart. It's a table. And not only is it a table, it's actually a horizontal table, not one of the standard vertical tables. And not only is it a horizontal table, it's actually a bunch of them kind of strung together by color. And as I start to build it, I'll explain it a little bit more, but I just kind of wanted to throw that out there so to get you thinking about, whoa, what's going on here and how are we going to do this? So before I jump into designing this, the other part I wanted to talk about is, where did this concept come from? Why did I come up with this idea? So last year I spoke at our virtual conference, which was the SpeakBO experience, and I did a presentation on inserting bars into a table. And this is kind of the end result that I presented at that particular seminar. And you can see it's really visual, and it has the different colors and everything there in a nice little summary. And again, I looked at this and I thought, wow, that's really cool, but wouldn't it be even neater if I could do something more representative, some sort of a picture or something in place of the bars? And that's where the crayon concept kind of popped into my head. And I said, oh, that would be really cool. Let's try and make that happen. Before I start designing, I do want to give you all of the elements that you'll need so that when you go back to your desk and you try to do this on your own, you have all the pieces there in front of you. And these will also be included in my slide deck as well. So for the query objects, we really only need one, which is that list of all of the different favorite colors. Once we have that, we need to know, some different things along the response line, such as, what is the count of all the responses? And here I wanted to highlight that I'm using an operator, which is the all. And what that does is it tells Webi to count not just the distinct favorite colors, but all of them. And I'll kind of show you that when we start building. And then finally, max response count as well. So what is the greatest response count in the report? And I need that because I'm going to use a percentage. I don't want to use a whole number. So that's where I'm kind of going with this, is I'm going to take the response count and the max response count and calculate a percentage. And I also wanted to highlight that I'm using the no filter function as well as for each. And that's all I'm going to say now. And like I said, as I build it out, I'll talk a little more about each of those. And then we need some variables for crayon creation. So first you have to say, okay, what's the biggest crayon I want coming out of my box? So I had to come up with a max crayon height. And this was really trial and error. I went in and I kind of played around with it, and I found that a height of 20 looks pretty good. So, that one is kind of on you to figure out how it's going to fit into your dashboard and how big or small you want it to be. Then I need to know what each individual crayon's height needs to be. And again, I'm using a function, which is the ceiling function. And all this is it rounds it up to the next integer. So again, the rest of it I will kind of talk about as I build it out. And then finally, the body of the crayon. How tall is the middle of that crayon? So for this, I'm using the fill function, which just plugs in whatever I tell it, and then the number of the measure, which is going to be the crayon height. And I also highlighted here this char 13. This is an ASCII character, and it's a hard return. So that's what's going to bring us down a line and make that cell grow in an upward direction. And then finally, there's some variables for filler, which I'm just going to kind of put out there so that you can see them, but I'm going to talk about them more as we build as opposed to now. The next thing you're going to need is some pictures of crayons, because you have to have an image in order to insert it into Webi. So I have these crayons, and then I split them apart into the middle, the top, and the bottom, because I want the crayon to grow. So I have that middle part that I'm going to use for the growth of the crayon. And then finally, I scrap the bottom of the crayon. And why, you might ask? This is why. Because when I put them side by side and I looked at them, I said, oh, the one on the left looks funny. It looks like a bunch of crayons sitting on a crayon box. The one on the right looks cooler because it looks like they're coming out. So it's really just an aesthetics thing. What if you don't have images of crayons or don't know how to break them apart? So for those of you who have Adobe Photoshop or some sort of photo editing product, I would use that. If you don't have access to that, this is kind of a great website that I like, pixelart.com. And this is kind of a light version of Adobe Photoshop that's free on the web. So you can go out there and you can kind of colorize and edit your photos there. The final picture you need is a crayon box. As everyone can see, mine is generic and does not represent anything in particular, but you can get your own image, and that will be the last piece. So with that being said, let's go make some crayons. We're going to jump into Webi. There we go. So first I'm going to start a new Web Intelligence document. And also I wanted to point out before I did that, I just have this as an Excel spreadsheet. And this is literally just a list of colors in an Excel spreadsheet, one column. And you'll see that when I create my query. I'm going to choose Excel, I'm going to explore and find that file. There we go. And then I have a tab called Data. On that tab is, like I said, one column that's called Favorite Color. I'll run my query and get started building my document. So I'm going to get rid of some things real quick just to make room. And quick cleanup just to make sure that my table is legible while I build. All right, so we have all of our different colors. So the first thing I had said was we need to know how many of each color exists, that response count. So I'm going to start creating a variable for that. And all I want to do, like I said, is just count the number of responses. And if you remember during the PowerPoint section, I did say I use that all operator, and I wanted to show you what happens if I don't. So you see it's just counting each distinct favorite color. But if I go back in and I add that operator, now I get the count of every single response in each of those colors. So just wanted to make sure to point that out and why I'm doing that. So the next thing I'm highest response that I have if I want to calculate a percentage. So I could do two things. I could add them up and I could say, okay, everything's going to be a percentage of, I think these add to 1,000. I just kind of threw these together. Can check that. Quick count. Yes. So I could just say, okay, divide everything by 1,000 and give me a percentage, but I don't necessarily want that, big of a range of percentages. So what I want to find is I want to use the max response for each color. So the max one I can see here is 285. So I'm trying to find that number. So that's where I'm going to start building the max response variable. So let's see, max response count. Oops. So let's start basic. Let's just say, okay, what is the max response count? I'm going to click OK. I can add that to my table, but it's kind of going to give me it by each color because all the colors are in the table. So I also want to see what's happening in the report too. So I'm going to bring it down here as well and just kind of have a separate box with the max response count as I work through my formula. So you can see now it's saying 1,000 because it's looking at the context of the whole report. So that's where that for each operator that I showed you comes into play. So there's two in here. There's a for all as well. For all removes dimensions from the calculation context. So it takes away whatever dimensions are there. That's not what I want to do. I actually want to add that favorite color dimension so that it's looking at each of them. So I'm going to use the for each. So I'm going to put it here. And I'm going to insert my favorite color. Okay, so this is good, because down here I'm seeing my 285, but up here it's showing each one for each of these different columns. And that is because I have that color dimension in there. So if I remove that dimension, I can still see it's coming out to the 285. But the one thing I had said before was I want to be able to calculate what percentage each color is. So how do I do that? So if I filter this table for just one color, let's pick red, the basic one. Now I have the 180, but again, the response count is still saying 180. What's going on? And that was the final piece of my formula, which was the no filter function. I want to take that filter off of this particular part of my table. And there we go. So now we have the 180 out of 285 that I'm looking for. So if I take these, I can calculate that percentage. So if I add a column on the right, oh goodness, left and right sometimes gets me. I take my response count and I divide it by my max response count. I'm starting to build out my next calculation, which is going to be what is that crayon height supposed to be. So I have a 0.63, so I know that 180 is 63% of 285. The next thing I want to do is I'm going to multiply that by my max crayon height, which I haven't added yet. Let's put that in. And like I said, 20 looks nice, and you'll see it when I start to build the actual crayons where the 20 height comes into play. So now I can take this and I can multiply this times that max crayon height. Now I know I'm going to have a height of 12 out of 20. But again, I don't like the decimal, so I want to apply something there as well so that there is no decimal. And that was that ceiling formula, which rounds it up every time. And I want to round up because I don't really want to round down to 0 per se. Now I have a height of 13. So I can turn my formula, and this is going to be the crayon height. And if I come out here and I change my filter, you can see that it's going to update for each of these different colors. So let's go to orange. 20, because the orange is the max, 285 and 285. So it's going to be a height, the max crayon height. Table that I mentioned to my report. And I'm going to put for now, the crayon height into the table. All right. Let's move it up. I don't really need a header for this. We'll get rid of that as well. So here's the crayon height. And I don't really need this first column either. I don't need, quote, the table headers because I'm just building the box of crayons. So I'm going to get rid of that and just keep the numeric column. So this is going to be the height, but now I need to actually put the height of the body here. And that was that other formula that I showed, which was the crayon body formula. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take the crayon height and I'm going to fill this block up with spaces and returns in the amount of the crayon height that I want. So I come in here and I say fill by crayon height. And what am I going to fill it with? And this was, again, that blank space that I said before. So quote, space, quote, plus a hard return, which is the ASCII character char 13. I put that in. And I swap it into this cell. I now have this gigantic table that's growing. And why is it so big? Well, part of it is because I didn't filter it yet either. So if I come in here and I add a filter and I just say, okay, the first one's going to be red. Let's build red. You can see it's going to get a little bit smaller. So I do want to clean up my cell in my table a little bit. So one of the things I want to do is I don't want to make it this wide. It's going to be a crayon, so it should be moderately small. So I'm going to just set it to a width of 0.5. And for my auto height, I can leave it at 0.16. It doesn't really matter, but I like even numbers, so I'm going to set it to 1/4 of an inch. The alignment is good. Borders, I don't want borders around it. That will look weird when I start to do the crayons. And then for the appearance, this is where we get the image of the crayon and add it to the background of the file. So if I click on image from file and click add, I can explore out and I have all of these different crayon pieces. And I do have bottoms in case we want to use them, but today we're going to stick with the middle and the top. So this is the red crayon. So I'm going to pick that red middle and then click apply. And it looks kind of weird. It's all kind of shoved up to the top left corner. So what I can do here is I can actually change the display to stretch. And when I do that, it nicely fills in that body of the crayon. So there is our red crayon with body. And one other thing I like to do too is in my table itself, I like to give my tables descriptive names. So I want to know that this is the red table. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to change the name of the table to red. That way, as I'm aligning things, I know which one I'm looking at. So there's the body of our red crayon. Now we need the top of the crayon. So I'm going to add another row above. And on this one, set to, I don't want to auto fit the height. I just want to put a set height in here. So I'm going to set it to 1/2 inch because it's just the top of the crayon. It doesn't have to grow or change. And then I'm going to change the appearance and I'm going to choose that red crayon top. And when I click apply, there's my red crayon. Pretty cool. So we have that. How do we get the next crayon? So I'm going to copy this and I am going to paste it And then I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say, okay, well, this is going to be the orange one. So the first thing I do is I change my table name. That way I don't get confused. And then for the layout, where do I want this to be? So I like to orient things when I'm doing this to the top left part of my report. So I'm going to orient it to this red first table, because if I move the red table, I want everything to move with it. I don't want to have everything tied necessarily to the report itself. I want to tie it to that red table. So I want to put this to the right side of, and this is why I name things red, so that I know where it goes at 0 inches. And then for the top, again, I also want to align that to red, the red table, as opposed to the report. That way, if I have to move it, I can just move that red table wherever I want it. And I'll show you that in a second. Click OK. So now I can come in here and I can grab this red table and I can move it, and that moves along with it, as opposed to trying to orient it to the report. Okay, so it's red. That doesn't make sense. This is supposed to be orange. So I'm going to come in here and I am going to change out the appearance real quick so that this becomes the orange crayon. So I'm going to grab the orange top, click OK, grab the orange body, click OK. And I know now it looks the same, and that's because we didn't change our filter. So if I come in here and I edit my filter and I change it to orange, we now have the orange crayon. But it looks really weird, right? Because the tops are aligned and not the bottom. And that's one of the kind of, I guess, shortcomings of Webi to me, is that you can't really align things at the bottom. Everything's aligned from the top left and down to the bottom right. So what can we do to get around that? This is where those filler formulas that I kind of briefly showed come into play, and I didn't really want to talk about them because they're hard to explain unless you see it. So what I want to do is I'm going to put a cell above each of these crayons to kind of move them down so the bottoms are aligned instead of the top. And how do I know? I guess the first question is how high that needs to be. Well, it's going to be the difference here. So how do I calculate that? I know the body height, so I should be able to kind of reverse it that way. So we'll start building our filler. So to calculate the height, I know my max crayon height is 20, right? So if I put that in here and say, okay, I want the max crayon height. And the reason I hard code, or I code that into a formula just so everybody knows, as opposed to just typing 20, is if I change my mind and I come back and I want it to be, let's say 30, it's a lot easier just to go into one variable and change it there, as opposed to changing it in all of these different formulas I'm creating. So I do like to, even if it's just a hard-coded value like that, put it into a variable and use it that way so it can be reused over and over again. So again, it's going to be my max crayon height minus each individual crayon height. But I also don't ever want it to be a height of 0, because I want a little bit of space at the top of everything. So I'm going to add 1, just so that I know it's always going to be at least 1. For example, the orange crayon was the max height, so it would have been 0, but now it'll be 1 instead. So that's my height. And then I need to do the same thing I did for this crayon body. I need to create a formula that makes it grow. So I can actually just duplicate what I did for that and just change this to the filler body instead. And instead of it being the crayon height, it's just going to be the filler height in the formula. Now, if I add that here, oops, no, it's not the right one, body. And come in here and auto fit the height, because I set it to not auto fit before. Click apply. There goes that crayon. And I want to take away the image because this is just a filler. I want it to be a blank cell. And then do the same thing here on the orange. Format my cell to not auto fit height. And I like a 1/4 inch. I try to keep things consistent. At least then everything will be the same size as well. Click OK. Magically, the bottoms of the crayons align, which is really cool. And the other thing I have in my presentation and I like to show is, what if I want to know the response count somewhere? I can put it outside the end of the crayon. Now that I have this filler block, it's a really good place to put it. So if I come into here, I can just add the response count to the end of my formula, and you'll see when I click OK, it's going to appear in both. And, I can kind of clean that up a little bit, make it pretty, bold, center, bold, center. And now it looks like it's supposed to, oh, I'm on the wrong one. There we go, bold, center. It looks like it's supposed to be there as well. It's pretty neat. Put that back to center. So now let's do one more, just so that we can see this all put together. So if I copy the orange and I paste it, come into my table format, I'm going to make this in yellow. I'm going in rainbow order for anyone that's wondering why I'm putting them in this particular order. And now I'm going to put it to the right side of, and again, this is why I like to name things so I can find it, table orange. So I'm going to put it at 0. And then again, I'm going to align to the top side of, and I'm going to align it to red because that's kind of my master table, so to speak. I'm going to click apply. That now jumps up to there. Now let's make the crayon yellow. So that's just in the cell format, and that's just the background image. Bring the yellow top in. Bring the yellow body in. And now I just have to change the filter. And this is like my favorite part. I love doing this part because it's so cool seeing it just kind of automatically come together. So if I come in here and I hit edit filter, I like to call this the magic part. Put on yellow and click OK.
Hey, Heather, this is Bruno with
Hi.
360. I just want to engage a little bit the audience. And it would be, while you're presenting, if the audience could prepare some questions if you got some, so that Heather can answer them at the end of the session. And as well as what are their challenges right now, basically to be doing what you're presenting today, to have some concerns, what type of challenges they have. And I think something that would be interesting as well would be to know which formatting they use as well today, in addition to Webi. Are they using Crystal, or are they using what they're using? So
Absolutely.
Just to help to engage a little more. And frankly, what you're presenting is awesome. Good.
Thank
Really
you.
Nice.
Yeah,
There
you very
would
much.
need to be more green. That's all. That's the only comment I could say today.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
More green color.
Oh, more green. You're right. I should have made green the winner. I can't help it. Orange is still my favorite color, even on St. Patrick's Day. So orange is going to win.
Yeah.
Spoiler. Oh, goodness. Oh, yeah. And also, if there are any questions that are relevant, by all means, again, you or Paul can feel free to stop me and interject. I'm happy to answer things along the way as well. I know I'm kind of putting a lot out there, but I'm trying to cover as much as I can, and I did give all the pieces at least in the presentation. So you should be able to go back and recreate.
Now's the chance. We got an expert, and we get questions around. Do you know anyone who can help with Webi? And like, yes, we do.
I'm going to get to that in a few minutes as well. So thank you. That's going to be a good segue for me.
Right? Yeah.
So I did kind of lay out all the crayons. You don't have to watch me do every single color. So that's kind of where I'm going to go next. Is I did, take the time ahead of time to at least put the green, the blue, the purple together for you, so I can show you how we get the box in there as well. And the box is really simple. It is just a cell. So I'm going to insert a blank cell, and I'm going to format it. And I made mine. And so remember, each of these crayons, I made a 1/2 inch, and there's 6 of them. So the width ends up being 3 inches. So we can pretty easily set that. And then I made it a height of 2. It kind of looks nice. The box looks better with a border, in my opinion. So I'm going to add a border, and then I'm just going to align it. And again, I'm going to align it to the red column. So I'm going to put it to the left of it and to the bottom side of it, so that it kind of sticks there. So there's my block. Now I just need to add the picture. So I go in, image from file, my crayon box, upload it, click apply. There it is. Oh, wait, it looks really weird. Remember the stretch. I just kind of like to point that out again, so that you can see there's a bunch of different display types, but stretch is nice because it kind of fills the picture into the whole block, just like that. So there it is. That's kind of the final finished crayon box. You got your different crayons with your different values, as well as your box. So one of the things, just to throw this out there, that I've kind of played with is, adding filters and things to this. And it was kind of a lot to get into today with the limited amount of time we have. But the one thing I'll say is, there are ways too that you can even have filters on this data if you have other demographics such as age or, gender, different things like that you want to use when you're filtering. And you can even turn them into, where is it, input controls as well. So that's kind of something that I'm playing around with, and I hope to present it in the future. So if you get a chance, check me out, and that might be the next phase of this presentation. Jumping back over here, I guess first thing I'd ask is, are there any questions or anything that anybody wants me to go through with regards to building the crayons or the box?
Don't see any questions coming in the in the chat session. I think everybody was absolutely bowled over and stunned.
We're confused, but whatever way it works out is good, I guess.
I mean, I can think of a certain company whose logo you kind of had in the background there, who'd be very interested in this. And now I'm wondering if all these other organizations watching today will think about how they could use Crayola crayons in their Webi reports.
Right.
Well, I mean, you can use other things.
In order to engage better user adoption.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, it doesn't have to be a crayon, right? It can be anything. One of the things I actually played around with too was books, which I think would be a really cool visual representation as well, as like books and genre, and kind of ranking them that way, and they can all be different colors and things. So yeah, I have a lot of neat ideas kind of along these lines. And
I have a challenge for you.
Okay.
So Bruno is always using in his presentations that it's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get.
Okay.
Box of chocolates, something to do with a box of chocolates. I think
that would be funny.
Right?
Yeah. Now I'm picturing like chocolate word clouds or something, where they grow and shrink based on who likes what flavor of chocolate. I'm a milk chocolate person, so that's going to be the winner, just so you know. But,
anyway, we do have a question. We have a question that came in through YouTube. So said it was a nice session, and a question. It's an interesting question. Do you prefer doing the calculation in Webi, or do you want ETL to do the job? And this is a fantastic question in the sense of, a lot of people struggle with this is your reporting tool like Web Intelligence purely there, right, for the consuming, right, of the information, and then all the heavy lifting in terms of calculations and so forth should really be done, back in your database. And yet you have such powerful capabilities in Web Intelligence to do some pretty amazing calculations and manipulations of the data like you were showing just then. So what are your thoughts on that, Heather?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would initially agree with what you just said, but I would add on, I think it really depends on the calculation, right? If it's something super complex that is going to bog down Webi, I would 100% do it in the back end. But if it's something simple like just counting the number of colors, I would generally prefer to do that in the front end of Webi, just personally. And I think it really is personal preference too. I mean, this is such a basic example, but if I had a lot more data and I have demographics and things like that, yeah, maybe doing it in the back end would make sense. But then again, I also think that adding those additional elements makes it a little harder to do it in the ETL job as well, right? Because what if you want to filter, those values could change. So I think it really just depends on what your data is and how complex it is. That would be my answer.
Right. Cool. Well, I don't see any more questions, Lisa, so do we hand back to you at this point? Fantastic job, Heather. Well done.
Thank you, Paul. Actually, I was going to add a couple more things. So I do have one more mini slide just to jump back to, which is, how do we stay connected on this? So have you ever had, let's say, a business objects question you can't find the answer to no matter how much you Google it? Because I struggle with that. I don't know that I always know what I'm Googling, but I try. And then, or, even a really cool idea and you have no idea where to start. So that's where a lot of these ideas come from for me. So, this presentation and a lot of my presentations come about from somebody just reaching out to me and asking me a question. And I think, oh, that's really neat, or, that would be really cool, but how can we do it even better? So I wanted to give everyone my email address. It's right up there under me. Just in case, you have any thoughts or questions or things like that, please feel free to reach out. I would love to hear from you. And who knows, your question can turn into my next session. So that would be really cool. As we said at the beginning, we're Infosol, so that's us. And one other thing I kind of wanted to put out there was, if you're, maybe you don't have a question, maybe you're not full of your ideas yet, but you're looking for inspiration. So we do also have the Speak BO community. And what is this? It's a community of your peers. And there's a lot of great presentations. And you might even see some of mine, such as the one that I did at the Speak BO experience last year on there, which is putting the bars into tables. So check us out there. And then also, if you want to learn more, we do have a really cool training offering, which is webylikeapro.com. So check that out as well. And that's all. I just wanted to add those couple of things because, again, I'd love to hear from everybody. And like I said, it's where I get my inspiration. So
you guys have done well. I've got a few questions for you guys. You guys are experts in what you do today in terms of Webi, and we were talking earlier around user adoption. So that's really, it's a fundamental element, when you do, analytics, because at the end is you want to make sure that you get the right information, it's shared properly, and you want to make sure that people it's designed for are really using them, because there are a lot of budgets behind, a lot of investments. In terms of user adoption, do you have some recommendations on how can the user adoption be increased within organizations? Because that's always a bottleneck.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the key to that is training. At the end of the day, if people understood the capabilities of what is now possible in Web Intelligence 4.2, I think they would be more than surprised. About a year or so ago, a year and a half ago, we decided to rewrite all of our Web Intelligence courses as if the very first tool you ever picked up was Webi 4.2. So instead of trying to teach people, okay, now you've got these features added onto these, and so forth, let's try and take brand new people who've never seen the product before and show them the capabilities of the new, things. I mean, things like shared elements, for example, are just absolutely tremendous. And with shared elements, you can drag and drop and build reports without ever having to write any code or anything like that. And so I think there's a lot of capabilities. When you look at the graphical capabilities now, building dashboards in Web Intelligence, we've actually built a whole course around just building dashboards in Web Intelligence. And you look at third-party products like the Need for Viz, add-on capabilities for adding, Google Maps and all sorts of fantastic, 3D graphs and charts into your Web Intelligence now. There isn't anything you can do. We've actually built and created Tableau dashboards in Web Intelligence, recreated them in Web Intelligence, and nobody could tell the difference in terms of the look and feel. So, I think that is what is missing, so to speak. And we work with a lot of clients who only, touch the edge and use maybe 10 to 15% of the capabilities of Web Intelligence without realizing all of the amazing things it can do. Heather, do you want to add anything to that?
That was pretty comprehensive, Paul. But I would definitely agree with you. Like I said, I never thought I would build a box of crayons in Webi, right? But it's really cool. And I think it just takes kind of sparking the imagination and thinking outside the box too, because just because it does X, Y, and Z doesn't mean you can't even expand upon that. And that's where, I think you can really build some fabulous things. So there's a lot of, like I said, flexibility, I think, is the versatility. Those two words are ones I use a lot interchangeably when I talk about Webi is, I think people just see tables and it's really not just that. It's got so much more now. So yeah, I would agree with you. Just touching the surface.
We cannot agree more, than what you said. It's clear, and Paul, it's very true right now. You've got lots of new people using Bobjet, using Webi. And it's very important for us, for you, and you guys have done a very good job over the years on training the community. You've been really well known for that over the so many years doing that, and it's just it's so important just to bring that knowledge to the community so that the tool they have, they understand how to use it, and And frankly, it's very easy to be using Webi. You don't need to be a genius around that. And in terms of the training that you guys offer, so you've got like a menu for training. How does that work? If you
I mean, people can just go to our website that you can see there, the webilikeapro.com. You can go directly there, or you can go to the Infosol website and click on training and business objects training, and you'll see all of the courses we offer. But you know, out of interest, the most popular course we teach today, you know, is called Using Web Intelligence 4.2 Like a Pro. And that is the course that was built, right? That is the course that was built specifically for, you know, this is how you would use Webi today in 4.2, not how you used to use it or anything like that. So so that's where people can find out information. Absolutely.
And it's rather affordable. You know, that's a great thing. That typically works out very well within the training budgets that people have. I've got another question for you. I know we spoke a little bit about it earlier. When is the next IBIS?
Next IBIS is coming up June 14th to the 16th. Yes, thanks for mentioning that, Bruno. I mean, this is a fantastic educational event, and we run courses and we run all sorts of sessions, just like the one you saw Heather do just now. Throughout that, it looks like this year it'll probably be a hybrid event, so it will be both in person and virtual at the same time. So we will be gathering there in California. If the people for the Grammys can do it, I suppose there's no excuse. There's no excuse why we can't be there as well. So, and we will be dressed just as smartly as those people were as well.
Even better.
Even better.
And frankly, the way things are going, you know, that there's a fair chance actually you might be able to have, you know, people in person come, and we'll see how it goes, but it's definitely going the right way. So that would be very, very nice. And that would be excellent news for everyone. So I'm sure we're all humans, and we all need, you know, contact with other people, real contact, you know, doing over Zoom or whatever solution is it's kind of fun at first, but it's not the real thing. So
definitely. I would also add, I'm considering doing the next part of this course at IBIS. So, you know, if you're interested in what you saw today and you want to see more, come on out and see us.
Yeah.
Over at IBIS, are there any specific, you know, what will be the most popular sessions, you think, Paul? What's your best guess, Paul?
Well, we run simultaneous tracks. So we run, you know, the BI reporting track, which is Web Intelligence and Crystal, and that one always is packed. And then we run a business objects administration track as well. And, you know, people on the administration side will tend to gravitate, you know, towards that. And we also will put the universe design modules inside the administration track as well. So that one's also, you know, equally popular. We do a dashboards and data visualization track, you know, as well. And we do a limitless business intelligence track, which is a whole bunch of, you know, customer case study after customer case study, you know, new and innovative ways that people are using business objects in their environments and creating, cool and interesting solutions. So those are the ones that people really, you know, tend to gravitate towards. We also hold training courses, you know, both before and after IBIS, and these are hands-on, you know, 1 day and 2 day training courses, and those are also incredibly popular as well. So lots to see and do there, without a doubt.
I had one question, because we had a question around that this morning, Paul, and I know you got a tool to do this. Okay, what do you have to offer, just in a few words? We got 2-3 more minutes left. What can you offer for people that've got Excelsius?
Yes.
Words.
Excelsius did come up, didn't it?
I suppose the first thing I'd say is I offer my condolences, because it won't run anymore. It won't run anymore because of Microsoft and Adobe, conspiring to kind of stop it altogether. But yes, we have a tool called Squirrel 365, which was built on the same premise of Excelsius. So it's a no-code, low-code tool that allows you to be able to, build data visualizations, dashboards, and value calculators, and even end-to-end BI applications from a spreadsheet type model. And data can be fed into that spreadsheet, and it has a direct connect using a business intelligence web services connector straight into business objects. And so what we've been able to do as a result of that is take all these customers that had Excelsius dashboards and literally, seamlessly migrate them to Squirrel, and their dashboards can look exactly the same. Obviously, there's a better UI, but for expediency's sake, we saved quite a few customers from a lot of cost and a lot of heartache. And so, it's turning out to be quite intriguing, as well. I mean, we have customers like Salesforce who use Squirrel, and you kind of scratch your head and say, well, you own Tableau, so why would you use a dashboarding tool like Squirrel, right? But, to do the same thing in Tableau would have taken a lot of work, and it wasn't possible. And Squirrel has write back capabilities and things like this, which Tableau doesn't have. So it was a great fit for companies like them as well. So thanks for letting us talk about that, Bruno.
No worries.